Amen.
Whoa, there he is. There he is.
Yeah, I'm here
Oh,
now.
how's
Oh,
it going, man?
it's good. It's good. It's a busy time of year, but it's good. Just kind of
I hear that. I hear that,
for the
Well,
holiday,
good. Hmm?
wrapping up stuff before the holidays, but it's good. How about
That's
you?
good. Good, man. Yeah, busy, busy, busy. I thought I was looking like I was going to be in trial next week, but
Oh, no.
yesterday the judge continued us to the spring. Basically, we were we believe that the defendant spoliated the video footage of the incident. So we had a huge hearing yesterday, and basically they threw a tantrum that they needed more time or wanted more time to look into things. So the judge said, okay, he doesn't want to get overruled on appeal or have a kickback. So he was definitely inclined to grant the motion, but he said, "Oh, we'll move you a few months, figure it out, and come back." So we still like where we're at, but not having trial next week kind of freed up the rest of the week, which was nice, But otherwise, yeah, been busy. It's the end of the year, trying to settle as many cases as we can, take advantage of insurance companies looking to close out files, things like that. But yeah, it's been busy.
Yeah, that's interesting, but
Yeah.
good. I guess are you upset about the trial being delayed, or are you?
No, I mean, I think, we want, because if we win the hearing, then we're going to get a rebuttable presumption of negligence against the defendant. So, like, the judge basically gave me the options. Well, what do you want? Do you want the presumption or you want trial? And I want the presumption because that makes trial much easier, and the odds that we will settle for a very large number better. So I'd rather wait, get the presumption, be able to hold their feet to the fire for another few months. Yeah, that works out in my favor. I don't, trial would be nice, but I don't want to go to trial in unless I'm in the best position possible. So, to waiting 4 months isn't going to change our position. It's only going to, we're going to eventually have a ruling on this issue after a few more depositions, and we'll know. I mean, I still feel confident how that'll play out. So,
Yeah,
but trial's a lot of work, man. Trial, trial's a lot of work.
yeah,
You know,
it's much work, but it's. I mean, if it goes well, it's worth it, right?
oh,
So,
exactly, exactly. It's worth. I mean, it is worth it, but yeah, it is. Everything else stops for trial, so it's worth it. But yeah, like I wasn't. It's this is a we're in a good spot, like in that case. So I'm not. We'll go to trial probably next year. If well, most likely we'll end up settling because one way or another, I think they're going to be screwed. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. God, there's always another case that's trial ready, getting trial ready. So it's not like it stops. So but I don't know. I mean, how are things with you, the family, everybody good?
yeah, everybody's good. Everybody's happy and well. No complaints. My sister had a kid that long ago, and she's doing
Congrats.
um,
You
and it's
know,
all good.
yeah,
Having giving, yeah, it's good. Yeah.
good deal, man. Well, we got to start. First, what are you hiding in the beard? Any good morsels or trinkets in there? You
No,
know, you got anything?
I'm in the cold Chicago winter, I guess.
Yeah, right. You got to stay warm. You got to stay warm. I don't know what that's like. Winter here is like it dips to like 65 at night. Everybody gets cold. I don't know what you're
Uh,
talking about.
actually, so yeah, it's helpful with the face, I guess. But yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah.
no hidden secrets here. Maybe a bit of laziness, I guess, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No, look, yeah, you could when it comes time for the wedding, you can just hide the rings in the beard and just pull it out. There
true.
you go.
Yeah, that's always an option. So yeah,
That's there you go. That's you got to start thinking outside the box. So, oh man. Well, speaking of, well, I guess players who don't have beards anymore. You're a Colts fan, resident Colts fan. I got to know, Jeff Saturday, is he worse than Nathaniel Hackett?
no,
Because neither one knows how to manage the clock, and it's
no,
great TV.
he's not worse. He's not worse. I don't think he's worse. I mean, well, like you give it a little bit of a benefit of the doubt, right? Because I mean, he's not a professional coach. This is not something that he's done before. I think the fact that like Hackett makes similar mistakes and he's been in this industry as a coach for a lot longer, like that makes him, in my mind, worse. Like Saturday
Yeah.
still that ability to grow into the role. I don't know if he's going to be coached next year. That's a whole complicated controversy with the hiring kind of skirting the Rooney Rule, like skipping over
Yeah.
theoretically qualified people on staff. I mean, like, yeah, like Gus Bradley had a bad record as a head coach, but the defense has actually been pretty good. It's just we can't score any points, right? So, I mean, maybe if given him a shot, at least he understands how things work. But Saturday is buddies with Ursay, so you gotta pick your friends sometimes. Maybe I don't know. I don't agree with it, but
Yeah, it's
we're
crazy.
just which I didn't. I had some. I mean, there's some talent, but it's not a key position, so it's not
Yeah.
going to win you. So, but it's been pretty disappointing and hard to watch. I've been to a couple this year, and they were pretty. I went to the Chiefs game though; that was pretty fun. But I went to the Eagles game was not as fun.
Yeah. The Eagles game was weird at the end with Sirianni jumping up like he's Kobe Bryant, yelling at the crowd like this is from Frank Reich. It's like whoa. I mean, we're getting
Yeah,
into like NBA, WWE type stuff. It just
people like
means more, right?
people like him. I think the guys that worked for him liked him a lot, but he was dealt a bad hand. And
Yeah.
I don't know if they're fire Ballard or what, because that's a weird situation. Because he gets like these like really favorable. He's like got such a good reputation, but like really like he hasn't really pulled together the best team. But it's always the quarterback issue, right? So
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, the Ballard thing, he drafted well for a few years early, and then he's kind of like rested on those laurels, and the team slowly gotten worse. And obviously, quarterback's a huge part of that. And I don't get the Frank Reich, like let's bench Matt Ryan because he's healthy, but to play Ellinger and then fire the head coach, that doesn't really make sense. But
they're,
whatever you got to do to stack the deck to support the firing, I get. I don't know. I agree with you though on Saturday. I mean, here's a guy with no coaching experience asked to come in
yeah,
and run an NFL team. I mean, he's clearly not going to be equipped to know exactly all the scenarios and what to do. And there's going to be some deer in the headlight type moments. And I agree. Hackett. I mean, he's been around the league. He's been on staffs for a long time. He should know better. He should know basic situation management. Um, but it was hard to watch on Monday night. Just the idea of the seconds are ticking off the clock. Matt Ryan doesn't call a timeout. Saturday doesn't call a timeout. Everybody just sort of like, you know, twiddling their thumbs, and those seconds matter at the end of the game, especially. So it's hard to watch. Not even as a fan, just you just to see a team that has talented players at certain positions and just
yeah.
completely come off the rails.
Ryan has clearly been on the decline for a while, right? I mean, there's about that. So that was a kind of a big risk. I mean, they traded Wentz, and I mean, they shouldn't have signed him in the first place. You ever traded for him in the first place, right? I mean, that was a huge mess.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's just a mess. I think they could just accept for 1 year being bad. That would be nice. Well, it's kind of happening. We're not. Yeah, it's happening this year. So hopefully we draft somebody okay. Then quarterback, I guess. So
Yeah. That's what I don't get. I mean, you have a very passionate fan base. It's not like 1 or 2 bad years is going to kill your season tickets or anything like that. People are still going to go to the game, buy merchandise, all those things. But it seems like they're anemic to the idea of doing a quick rebuild, kind of tear it down, or at least certain positions. Tear down quarterback, go get a young quarterback, maybe. I don't quite get it. You have talent at running back, some talent at receiver, linebacker. There are just decent pieces throughout the team, but they just seem to refuse to give into. I don't know whether it's a rebuild or retooling, whatever they want to call it. It's strange. So anyway,
yeah,
I mean that's.
I think that's got to retool, but it will be okay. So yeah, but I guess talk about the league now and see how.
Nah, well, yeah, we could certainly. I mean, I don't know what you thought, but obviously we play. You and I were matched up last week. I'm sitting there watch Josh Jacobs go for 500 yards or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Great for my DFS team. I got to say, DFS was fantastic last week. Nothing too my own horn, but we had a solid like 5K return. So last week was great. I'm more than happy that Josh Jacobs did that, but at the same time, like, whoo, you know, what, peek us behind the curtain here. You've got the top 3 running backs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even close. The rest of your team is getting carried by them. What's that like?
A theory here, Lowell. I'm trying
Okay.
that you can win a championship in this league with only 3 players effectively. Maybe I'll start benching everyone in the playoffs. No, I mean,
You should.
No, it's been rough. I think I had some hopes for some players, like, I don't know, Russell Wilson. I thought maybe new environment, might be a bit better than he had been in Seattle in recent years. That's not the case. I thought Cortland Sutton would be catching balls from him. Obviously that's not working. Pittman, I had a lot of hope for. I don't know. I thought, the Colts were going to be better, right? I drafted Matt Ryan originally, so I think I drafted probably the 2 worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I don't know. It's just been bad, and I had some proposed trade offers, but I just I'm letting it ride a little bit, and maybe that's wrong, but maybe I win. Maybe Henry.
Yeah.
and actually all have dominant games for a few weeks and it goes okay. It's just that's what it's dependent on, really. Pointed out.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy just to look at like your team scoring. We just think about the whole season. I mean, you've had 3 times you've been the second highest scoring team, and of course last week you were the number 1 highest scoring team. But I mean, most of these weeks it's wild fluctuations from like 10th to 2nd. I mean, it's all over the place depending on how those 3 do. And obviously last week, as we saw, one guy can just completely carry the team. So it's certainly possible. It's been kind of nuts to watch it unfold, because we've never seen a team, I think, in the league to completely dominate a single position. People have 1 or 2 really good players at a position, but to have the unequivocal elite at one position and just say, that's it. Everything else can be mediocre. It doesn't matter if they all go off or they all end up in the end zone a couple of times. That's pretty much it, week to week. So I mean, I'm not rooting for you because I'll probably see you in the playoffs, but I mean, it's kind of crazy.
I mean, you're making playoffs. I've got obviously the question, but yeah, I got a good shot. I think we're in the toughest division in the league by far, right? I mean, are pretty awful compared to ours.
It's kind of a joke. It's definitely a joke. The other divisions, it's. I mean, I spent a lot of time on this season talking about Wagner sort of like squandered a great opportunity. He's got a lot of talent. He's made trades. He scores a lot of points. He's 7-5. Part of that's probably bad luck. He's faced the hardest schedule in terms of points against. But Joe's run away with his division, which wasn't very good to start, and played out very poorly. And in ours, Matt has improved his team. It really turned him into a juggernaut the last month or so. And 6-6, I think, is a deceiving record for you. You clearly have the talent to win on any given week. I think our division by far the toughest. Potentially all 4 teams in the playoffs. I don't think that will happen, but just with the way the math will work. But it's definitely going to be close.
That would be pretty interesting if that played out that way. But yeah,
I don't think Jacobs didn't win enough in the non-division weeks. He'd have to win out. He'd have to win out. You'd have to beat Matt. And then, Tates would have to lose probably twice for Jacobs to get in, or it'd be very close then if Tates only went 1-1. So it's doable. It's just I don't know that it seems like a lot, right? To expect Jacobs to beat you and then to beat me, that would be impressive, or terrible luck either way. So I don't think it'll happen, but you're definitely going to be there. I don't see it take a lot for you to miss the playoffs. You'd have to lose out basically, and probably get some help elsewhere. You're pretty much in, I think.
Yeah, I think I feel pretty good about it. I'm
Yeah.
confident that I'll have another. I'll get a playoff run on.
Yeah. I mean, the big question going then is, you're going to be the 5 seed most likely, could be the 6, although probably the 5. And then it's all about matchups on a given week. I've gone from the 1 to the 4. It's I've stopped scoring. My team has been really poor the last 4 or 5 weeks, um, and anything's still possible. But it's just we'll see. It's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see what the seeding looks like, what all the matchups are, because that's really where it'll get decided who has better matchups, on a given week. Particularly with your team, if one of those running backs has a bad matchup and struggles, that might be it.
Yeah,
So it's going to be
the risk.
interesting.
Yeah, but it's the league is still going strong.
I know all these years later, right?
Yeah.
We're getting close to the decade.
Yeah.
Kind of
So,
blows my mind.
yeah, I think I have actually. I think overall, I've had some playoff success over the years, but I think I'm probably overall one of the worst overall records, maybe the worst, which is okay, but it's not.
I mean, look, pretty much everybody's had 1 or 2 really bad years. I mean, I there's some people probably had more worse years than others, but most people have struggled, here and there, and I think that's natural. We've been at it for this long. You think about injuries. We're now in this weird cycle where people basically punt on one year to focus on the next. And so we've kind of now created like groups of people every year that are competitive. And they kind of alternates. That's interesting to see if that changes in a year or two, the strategy. Yeah, it's taken on its own life, and it's nice to see it develop and see the teams change or not change year to year. I do enjoy it. Even though I've never won, I still keep coming back for more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. Well, I mean, is this your best team, do you think? Or have you had better teams in prior years?
It's hard because if I go all the way back to, I guess it's 2014, I went 11-2, average 125 points a week. That team had, Drew Brees on it. It had Mike Evans, Jimmy Graham, and Antonio Brown, Mike Wallace. That team had a lot of talented players. Did that, is that a better team? I don't know. It's kind of hard to compare it in that way. I think that team, just looking back, that team kind of faltered, as the go the right year. That would help. That team was so dominant. If you just look at like scoring in terms of where it finished within the league week to week, it was basically second, first, second, a bunch of firsts. It obviously put up a dud in the championship round, but that team was dominant most of the season, in a way that this team has now struggled for a month. I've had a lot of buys. I've had a lot of injuries to fight through. So I can give myself the excuse. I don't know if it's better, but I think they're comparable. Definitely my 2 best teams.
Maybe it's your best coaching season or GM season, I guess. So that's some.
I don't know. It's so crazy just to look at like what the team names were. We go back that far. Obviously, Ursay's Connections. We know who that is.
Yeah.
Jimmy Haslam's Homeless GM. There's some good names in here.
Yeah, there were some good names over the years.
Yeah. Except for Paul's. Paul's name's just, unimaginative. So.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, that season where I had this dominant team, I get to the championship game, and then that's the time where Russell Wilson played Arizona and went off for like 40 points, and
the Russell Wilson I was hoping for,
That
you
was,
know.
that was Russell Wilson and Antonio Gates had a huge game. CJ Anderson. I mean, also, my team, Drew Brees had less than 8 points. I mean, what are you going to do? Didn't matter what anyone else did. When Russell Wilson goes for almost 40 and your quarterback puts up 8, you're never going to make that difference up. So, yeah, it's also interesting. You look back. I mean, obviously that's 8 years ago, but how many of those players are no longer in the league on all these teams? And I think that's kind of the craziness too. Just how much changeover there has been, and yeah, it's I don't know.
Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
interesting. A lot of changes. So, but I mean, I still think your team is pretty strong this year. It's just we'll see. I mean, it's just with Matt chasing you, pretty interesting.
Yeah, I think he came into the year thinking he would struggle, and then he made a bunch of trades, and his team got much better. And it turned into, now he's sort of boat racing everybody. Geno Smith obviously has been a real pleasant surprise for him.
That's a
Tony
good.
Pollard really delivered. But yeah, I mean, he's done well. Obviously, he has Tyreek Hill, drafting Amon St. Brown, but trades for Travis Kelce. He's able to weather the Cooper Cup injury. You're just kind of making these incremental margin, these changes that have really paid off. So have to give, kudos to him because he's really, he started out tough, and he made a bunch of deals early and it took a little while, but in the last 5 weeks, he's got three number 1 point scores, a number 2 point score, and a number 4 point score. I mean, it's basically just turned it on here. At the same time, my team has struggled, and it's paying off because he might get the number 1 seed, and that's half the battle. It's just to be alive in the playoffs. It's going to be interesting. At least that's kind of how I see it. It's I don't know. I mean, I don't know for you, will you sit with your team if you've thought about what the matchups will look like that first round of the playoffs, who you might want to play or not want to play, whether you're the 4 or sorry, the 5 or the 6. I can't fall lower than the 4, but you kind of in that position of you could be the 5, you could be the 6, kind of, who do you prefer to play, Wagner or potentially me or Matt, basically?
Yeah, that's a good question. I just had a nice win against you, so that's always a positive. But I think you and Matt have great teams. Well, yeah, it's hard to say. I think it doesn't. It almost doesn't matter to me who I play. That's what I'm thinking about, right? Because the reality is I'm so dependent on 3 position players, right? And I need them to have a good game. So I don't think it really matters because no matter what, I'm going to have to get a little bit lucky with some players in sync, I think, with Jacobs and Henry and Eckler. So I don't think it matters. I mean, I can beat anybody on any given day, and I can lose to anybody on any given day. And it doesn't matter who I play as long as those players play well. So I'm not too concerned about it. But I will probably analyze it a bit more as the matchup occurs. But I'm feeling okay that I can beat anybody, and that's all that matters because you can go on a run and win the championship.
Yeah, so. I mean, I think your benefit is you don't have a lot of decisions to make week to week. No. You'd love to have a different quarterback, but maybe you're deciding, do I start? Maybe if Brandon Cooks comes on here late or like a Mike Gesicki, you're not really making too many decisions. You're kind of playing matchups in 1 or 2 spots. Whereas, I've got a team where because the depth is so strong in terms of quality, it's every position is a matchup debate, which makes it a lot more difficult because I have to try to make the right calls, and you're not entirely sure unless there's like an overwhelmingly bad matchup. So you've got it a little bit more straightforward, which helps because you're sort of just, hey, if those guys perform well, it's going to work itself out.
Yeah, so. I think that's right. It's just it's always going to be a bit of a challenge, right? So, for you, not for me, obviously, but yeah, I mean, and I think So I need to do a little bit more digging into that, but I think overall, like I feel like I can have a good run, and that would be fun. Like if I win a couple games in the playoffs or win none, it's okay. But I just want to make the playoffs this year and see where I go next year. But it's always I'm playing like a Pacers style of management, I guess, historically, where it's just like as long as I got a mediocre team, it keeps the fan base happy, and that's all you need to do.
There you go. There you go. Hey, you could be the Pacers and hit a last second buzzer beater, to take out the washed, champs. What's that like? If you beat Jacobs on like the last play of Monday Night Football, is that the equivalent? Right?
Yeah, it's
You know?
exactly. Yeah, I mean, the Patriots tried to tank this year too, and they couldn't. So far, they haven't been able to do it. So that's been kind of funny to watch.
That's like half the league, right? Like Utah's really good, Indiana's really good. They're both trying to tank.
Yeah.
I don't get the NBA makes no sense. It's like the good teams struggle, the teams that suck all of a sudden are like first place in the conference. That's whatever.
Because, so,
Yeah.
but
Oh,
it's
man.
yeah. I mean, but back to football. I mean, I think the here in this right now, right?
Yeah.
I think that's in the rankings and the way they've performed this season, but that doesn't mean everything, right? So I'm curious to see how the playoffs play out. I'd like to see a surprise. So
Hey, look. I think in the playoffs, regardless of records, I think Wagner's team is, in terms of a starting lineup, on any given week, is good enough to beat anybody, good enough to win it all, 100%. I think your team, if Jacobs, Henry, and Eckler just collectively put up, I don't know, like 80 points or something stupid like 70, 80 points between them,
yeah, I
they're
can win
in every matchup because the other six guys only have to score like 7 points apiece,
right.
to put it's not like they have to do that much. So,
Right.
if Eckler and Jacobs and Henry all sort of due to their average, I mean, most weeks you're going to be right there. And I think that makes it scary because, you can't really do anything. You just have to hope, somebody's either injured or they, struggle because of the matchup or whatever. That to me is, I think the benefit for you is you've got these three powerful studs. At the same time, anything can happen. We've seen it, right? We've seen it in the league time and again where there's upsets, teams
Right.
that we don't think would win, maybe not win at all, but certainly can make a run, win one or two games. So we'll see. It's
Still injuries that can happen. There's a lot of stuff
of
that can go
course,
for everyone.
yeah.
So
There's nobody left on waivers. I mean, at this point, everybody's sort of. You got to hope you guys stay healthy or you have the right piece, on the bench. But we'll see. It's been a fun season because there's been a lot of parity at the top.
mhm.
I mean, for much of the year, I was undefeated. Joe has one loss. Matt has two losses. Like teams are really good. You just look at the amount of points, it makes it more interesting. There's not like one team that seems like a runaway. Although I don't know what in the bottom half of the league, I don't know what's going to happen in the consolation bracket because, man, those are some bad teams.
That's
I don't
probably
know.
a fun bracket, really.
Yeah, that's going to be chaos. Somebody like Evan is going to win the consolation bracket with like the worst team in the league just because he'll get lucky. I mean, that is just going to be hard to watch. I'll make it a point of like once the playoffs are over with. Oh, who won the consolation bracket? What happened? Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking about that today. Like, someone's going to get the number one seed. Is it? But I don't know. As we saw this year, right? I mean, you're a Colts fan. I don't. Is the number one pick right? I don't know next year who's going to be the number one pick. I mean, it's probably not going to be Jonathan Taylor again. I guess it's probably Eckler, right?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like Eckler, but you can go from. The best problem with the running back position, I guess, right? I mean, it's hard to be
If you
consistent.
have to, yeah.
And, but it's not going to be. It's not going to be Taylor, which is unfortunate for me. I mean, he hasn't played for my team. I feel bad for. You know, it's sad to watch him play now because he has nowhere to go, and it's sad, but It's hard. It's hard with running backs, right? I mean, that's the reality. But
Yeah.
they are still a critical fantasy football piece, right? I mean, they touch the ball a lot. So
Yeah, I just think that the scarcity at the position makes it so that if you have that pick, unless your keepers are two running backs who you feel good about,
yeah,
you probably have to go running back because a lot of the other really strong keepers are receivers, right? Or there's some quarterbacks. I guess you could think about like a Stephon Diggs or I guess Kelsey. I was listening to a podcast earlier that was sort of having some discussion of that. Is Kelsey worthy of the number one pick in a PPR league next year? I don't
how
know. Like,
he's getting up there, right? Or
yeah,
am
he'll
I?
be like 32, I think.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, but that offense, right? Like, it doesn't matter. He
right.
has these games where he goes for two or three touchdowns, and it's kind of matchup proof. But you're right. I mean, that's also part of it with running backs too. Is at what point does the age matter? You know, Eckler's going to be, I think, 27 or 28 next year. Henry's going to be, I think even older than that. You have to start. Obviously, these are all questions that are more for the off season, but it begs, kind of if you're in the consolation bracket, like I don't know if I want the decision of going number one. Obviously, Eckler is sort of the given default right now, but he's injury prone except for this season. I don't know if you trust that, and it's kind of like, do you want to have that pressure? So just thinking ahead. Looking ahead right now, we're getting close to that time of the year, and then the off season, right? People are gonna have to start making those thoughts, keepers, and everything else, how that all plays into the future in the league. But I don't know. I guess it's Eckler by default, but I don't feel great about that.
Yeah,
You
no,
know,
I don't either.
yeah, I don't
And
know.
go with. I mean, that was yeah. I mean, he's been great and he's consistent. And he generates in a lot of different ways. He's a well-rounded guy. So I mean, he's a good player. Um, Chargers haven't been that good, but he's good. So
Yeah, but that's fantasy football, right? The whole ultimate benefit to fantasy football is it's not so much about you don't need to have the best player on the best team. It's just who's creates the most production. Sometimes it's usually not the best team. The Chiefs are sort of the anomaly, right? Or Josh Allen, quarterbacks are a little bit of an exception, but usually it's team that is always in competitive, high scoring games tends to lend itself to players that are producing. It's like the Jamar Chase last year. The Bengals, every game was a nail biter. So, of course, they're throwing. Of course, there's all these crazy plays because they have to score.
mhm.
That's kind of how I look at it. I don't want a team well, I certainly don't want anybody affiliated with Russell Wilson next year. You know, I think that's a safe bet, but you don't want somebody on the low scoring teams. You want somebody on either a high power offense or a team that's just in general going to be competitive week to week because they don't blow teams out and the defense is an elite, whatever it is. Um, I think we see that, right? The example I think of is McCaffrey. The Niners are really good, but they are not going to use him as a workhorse unless they absolutely have to. They don't need to. The defense is elite and they have all these other weapons. And so it's like, well, McCaffrey's value almost went down by leaving Carolina because he doesn't get used in the same way. It's
Mhm.
like next year, how are you gonna value McCaffrey in the draft? He's not a top five player. The Shanahan's never gonna use him that way. So, it's I don't know what you do with that, how you rank him, but he's not a top five running back because he's never gonna have usage like that on that team. You know, they just don't. That's just not how they play. So, conversely, Eckler is a touch monster. It's not even
Right.
carries. He gets like 10 catches or 10 targets a game.
Yeah.
It's you have to like balance all those different factors. So
Yeah. And I mean, it used to be that McCaffrey, I guess, for a
well,
couple of
yeah,
before he hurt,
not
but
not not now.
not now. Yeah. No.
Right? Like he may win a Super Bowl, but and he may
Yeah.
not get hurt as much. But I mean, from a fantasy perspective, right? You'd rather have like the Saquon Barkley problem of great player, bad team, but he's going to get 20, 25 touches a game versus McCaffrey, who great player, great team, 10 to 15 touches. And
Right.
if McCaffrey's not getting in the end zone or having some big home run play, like it's kind of hard to see him week to week having the elite production that you need or you would count on. You know, I mean, that's a more big picture discussion, but that's something that I think, you know, at least for that player, right, has to get taken into consideration, you know, next year. So I said, I'm trying to, while I'm focused on my playoff run, I'm thinking about all these other little things that
it's
keep
good.
the league interesting, right? You know, it
A lot
matters.
of decisions next year in terms of, you know, he drafts and things like that. I mean, and I've received trade offers, and I'm hesitant to trade a bunch of picks for players just to win this year because I don't know. It's just I never got comfortable with going for it, you know. So
It's a big decision to basically say, like, I'm going to almost give away a season. Not, you know, you never know, okay?
yeah,
But
to
to
win
do
now,
that, to
yeah,
win that, well, not even to win, right? It's for the the confidence that you could win now. You're
right,
not guaranteed anything, but yeah, I think, and we see that this year, right? Like, part of it's luck, part of it's drafting, part of it's keepers, you know, trading, all these things. But we've got 4 or 5 teams that are all could probably win it. Usually we have 2 or 3. I mean, so that's definitely an anomaly. But I
yeah,
think it also speaks to, just because you go for it doesn't mean you get the payoff, right? Like, if I lose, you know, I had all these draft picks, Wagner had all these draft picks. I don't know that either of us is going to win the league.
yeah.
You know, mortgaging the future. I don't know. It's a tough one, right? It's tough. It's a tough one. And for you, you know, you've got
Right,
to decide, right? Are you
yeah.
going to continue to keep Henry going forward? You know, do you at some point trade him? You know,
I get
knowing that maybe you're not keeping him. You know, there's lots of things to consider.
right. Not next year, but maybe the year after. Is that right? I think. Yeah. I think.
I forget. I forget. I think he's either a third rounder or a second rounder next year. I can't remember which, but I can figure that out.
Yeah, it's not important for this conversation, but yeah, I can.
No,
That's
no, no. But yeah, it doesn't matter for, obviously, at this point. You know, you can't trade him, but yeah, he's a second rounder next year. So you could keep him one more. I mean, you could theoretically 2 more years. You know, it all depends where you fall, where you think his value is as he gets older and has more miles. But I you know, you were in a tough position, I think, because it's, even if you weren't trading picks, it'd be easy to say, let me trade one running back for like a quarterback and a receiver, right? To sort of go in that direction.
yeah.
But that doesn't necessarily mean that you end up better week to week.
No, I
You
don't.
know,
I don't think I would for the most part. I mean,
it's just tough.
it'd be close, but I mean, my quarterbacks just were so bad, are so bad, or have been, you know, that I drafted, and you know, there aren't that many good quarterbacks, really. There's
No,
not.
no.
You know,
I mean, hey, look, Daniel Jones is available, you know, on the free agent market. He's the 10th ranked quarterback, you know, for the season. So it's not like there's nothing available. But I agree, there's nothing great, you know.
so, for some reason, not a fan of that play.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't know. I mean, it can't be worse than Russell Wilson, but
you know, but maybe Russell Wilson finally figures it out. You know, you never know. That could be my ticket to the championship. Is Russell Wilson all of a sudden playing well?
yeah, I don't know about that. I don't know. I mean, maybe, right? Honestly, at this point, anything's possible with the way the season's gone and twists and turns that are still left to, you know, reveal themselves. Yeah, I don't. Russell Wilson could easily have all of a sudden 2 or 3 great weeks. They could fire Nathaniel Hackett. The offense all of a sudden gets opened up and it's better. Who knows? I couldn't tell you, but I don't know. I might consider Daniel Jones or Jared Goff or somebody and just sort of stream week to week because it can't be any worse. Can't be any worse. You know, but yeah, we'll finish on this. Your predictions, whether it's for your team, the playoffs in general. What do you kind of see happening? You know, it's a couple
um,
weeks left. You're probably going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah,
Anything's possible. What do you predict? What do you think's going to happen?
that's a good question. Yeah, I think I make the playoffs. I think I
Mhm.
win. I'm just gonna predict that, and
Okay.
I'm in my place in the league this week, just to be confident, I guess. And then after that, I'd probably lose in the first round.
Yeah.
Um, go wrong, but I made the playoffs, and so that's something to write home about. And then in terms of who's winning the league, that's a really good question. It's probably going to be Matt Lamagnum. I think the right answer.
Yeah, I have to look at what the matchups are for the semifinal week, but I'd like to see like maybe a battle of the mats, you know.
That would
I
be
could
good.
see a I could see a battle of the mats. I think Wagner's team on its week is better than Joe, but I don't know what the matchups are. I don't know who's got who.
I mean,
But yeah, it'd be interesting to see how it all shakes out.
but Joe's won enough, so I'm
I
not.
know Joe doesn't need to win. Joe doesn't need to win. I'm
He
tired
doesn't.
of paying Joe money.
Yeah, Joe's won enough. But I mean, he's got a good team, obviously, but he's won enough. So I think one of the. I mean, I think you could obviously win. I think yeah, I think it's going to be one of you four. I think that's
Yeah,
pretty.
that's.
We'll just see how it plays out. Yeah, I haven't looked at the matchups. Do you have those available to kind of see how out?
I mean, it's. Yeah, I mean, obviously you pull up individual team schedules. I think the semifinals is like week 16. It's a little bit hard to project entirely what would happen. For Wagner, I mean, he has Mahomes, Barkley,
Got to.
Devontae Adams. I mean, these are good matchups when you think about it.
Yeah,
I mean, just look at the bench. Taysom Hill, but
you know,
I mean,
surprising.
that's not a bad roster. Certainly, on a given week, Mahomes. I mean, he could easily light it up. Um,
Yeah.
I think that's why I think Wagner's team is one that he basically starts exclusively players that are in the top 10 of their position, top 5 or top 10 of their position. So
The
for
record.
whatever reason, he hasn't put it all together in terms of points, week to week. He's faced a really tough schedule. He's had the number one points against. So he's had a really tough go of it. But,
Wow.
on any given week, this team could easily dominate. Um, Conversely,
I mean, his luck is bound to change, right? I mean, at some point,
no.
I think it's a really talented team.
Yeah, it is. And, on the other hand, you look at Joe, right? I mean, Joe has the top 2 receivers. He's got Hurts, who, is just a monster. Fields as well. Um, yeah, I mean, Joe has probably a little bit more of a deficiency, that second running back spot, relying on Zeke to get in the end zone week to week. Um, Picked up Zonovan Knight, who maybe that's a playoff savior, but these teams are really even. Neither one has consistent tight end production. Both have question marks at defense, but they both have dominant quarterbacks, running backs, receivers. I mean, so it's really even. It really will come down to simple matchups. Chicago's a bad matchup for receivers. Um, Joe just has tough matchups that week. You think about uh, the Giants defense, Hurts having to play the Cowboys. I mean, there's definitely a possibility that Joe struggles a little bit and Wagner can get by, and we'll see. To me, I think that one's going to be pretty tight because the rosters are fairly close, and obviously for Trevor Magna, I mean, the team is really good, but I think the amount of points he's been scoring is not sustainable. I mean, obviously Kelsey's a big part of that. Higgins has been unreal without Chase recently, but you know, if I'm playing Matt this week in the semifinals, I don't know. I like my chances. I'm not exactly shaking in my boots with some of these matchups he has, So I think there's definitely a chance that for me to pull the upset, but at the same time, anything's possible. It really comes down to one or two players probably having a big game versus having a quiet game, and hard to know where that would happen. But yeah, matchups, that's definitely the key. I mean, I've been trying to think about that throughout the season, matchups in that week, you
Hmm.
know, who's playing who, whether it's a high scoring game, whether it's advantageous, matchups, whether it's a running back or receiver, trying to kind of lean in that direction. But I don't know. I don't know if any of these are going to deliver. It's just it's hard to predict it. But you just look down these rosters, right? All you really see are top 5, top 10 players at all those positions, and so it's going to be really thin margins. It's going to make it interesting because I don't think we've ever had a playoffs where you have this many teams with this much quality, and
Sure.
so it's just going to be one of those back and forth battles. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to it for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
Tough
Yeah,
season. Um, yeah, really looking
yeah,
forward to what happens,
yeah.
and hoping maybe I pull something off, but I doubt it. So, but I, I'm happy to get the opportunity to try. So
Exactly, exactly, exactly.
yeah,
So yeah, well, it's a pleasure. Thank you for coming on, for joining us here late in the year. It's good. You're in it. You're competitive.
yeah,
Um, yeah. At least when the trade deadline is. Unlike Paul, we all found out. So
yeah.
it's been good. So anyway, I don't think you and I have talked face to face, and obviously this is Zoom. But obviously, congrats again on the engagement. It's a big
Well,
deal.
yeah.
I'm sure everybody's excited for you. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Will. I appreciate it. Yeah,
Yeah,
looking.
man, and congrats on being an uncle.
Yeah,
It's
right. Yeah, yeah. So it's been good. How's your kid doing? So,
I'll show you right now. Here we go.
oh, very cute.
There we
Yes.
go. There we go. Here we go. Passed out. That's how he's doing.
Yeah.
He'll stay like that a couple more hours, and then he'll wake up and he'll
Are you getting?
demand food. So
Are,
yeah,
are you getting now, or are you still kind of getting woken up a lot at night?
it so much depends on like when he goes to sleep. If he falls asleep or he goes to bed like a little earlier, then he gets up earlier, and it kind of throws it into a loop. Every day's a little different. He's pretty good. I mean, we basically do it where someone's got to get up in the middle of the night, and then someone else is getting up like early, like in the morning, kind of on the early side to basically hopefully put him back, feed him and put him back to sleep. But sometimes he gets to like 6:30, and he's like, I want to be awake, and so you're up. You don't have he won't go back to sleep, and it's 6 a.m. and you're just screwed. Doesn't matter what day of the week it is. So that one's a little tough, but um, it's not too bad. I feel like I'm just in like this like a rhythm of it. That's just how it is. My body's just used to waking up at certain times. So we'll get him. He's getting to the point now where pretty soon we can really try to impose some sleep training and get him, you know, on a more set regimen or schedule. But yeah,
There
it's all
is.
right. I mean, yeah, he sleeps in his room, like, he's perfectly fine in there, and you know, but I'm sure as Alan can tell you, right? It just
Yeah.
it the first good bit, you just have to push through. Eventually they figure it out. They grow out of any kind of sleep issues they have eventually, but it's just, you know, right now we're just in the phase of he's so accustomed to this is what he does, and we got to break him of it soon. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
we'll be
No.
there. We'll be all right. But he's good. He's good. He's a pretty good baby. He basically cries when he's hungry, or he pooped himself. That's pretty much it. So,
Yeah. That's it.
you
That's
know,
good. Yeah.
you know,
Ellen's is kind of similar. Ellen's daughter is kind
yeah.
of similar. It's just like not too fussy or anything like that.
Yeah,
So
he doesn't like cry for hours or anything. Like he basically, it's pretty clear what's going on. He's either like, "I'm hungry, feed me now," or "I poop myself." And okay, it's pretty
yeah.
simple. Figure that one out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not too bad. Like that part we like is that he's a very good baby most of the time. He just, it's he hates naps, and he basically won't let us sleep through the night every night, which is whatever. He's a baby. He's 4 months old. Like what? This is what comes with the territory, man. So you'll get there.
Yeah.
Cherish your sleep. So I
Yeah.
know you're busy. You're working long hours, getting your billables in. So I'll let you get some rest. But,
Yeah. I will. You too. Hopefully.
yeah, yeah, I'll be all right. But appreciate it.
All right.